Here is our host, Tian Wei.
Hello and welcome to World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. We begin today's program with the latest in Afghanistan. Fighting has stopped in most parts of Afghanistan after the Taliban moved into Kabul, but in Panjshir Valley, forces under the former Afghan First Vice President Abdullah Saleh and Ahmad Massoud, the son of the former anti-Taliban leader Ahmad Shah Massoud, are resisting Taliban rule. According to Russian media, the Taliban delegation arrived in Panjshir on 24th to begin talks with resistant forces. Ahmed Masood called for an inclusive government, saying that the war will be unavoidable if the Taliban refuse the dialogue. I got a chance to talk exclusively with Ahmed Wali Massoud, the brother of Ahmad Shah Massoud, who chairs now the Massoud Foundation, who also served earlier as the former Afghan ambassador to the United Kingdom. We understand you work very closely with Ahmad Massoud. How are the situation for Ahmad Massoud and his soldiers now in Panjshir Valley?
He is there, we are there. We would not fire. We would really prefer negotiation. But if the Taliban attack, of course, we don't have no choice except to resist. Well, as you know that it's almost a week since the Taliban came to Kabul. And then Mr. Ahmed Masoud, he went to Panjshir, and I came with a delegation, delegation of the political leaders. I came to Pakistan to talk the dialogue. We were both in Kabul a week ago, and he went to Panjshir. I came with delegation to talk to the Pakistani authority. Now, since then, of course, the Taliban have been preparing to attack Panjshir, but we said we warned them not to attack Panjshir. But that will be a catastrophic thing. Better to make a dialogue. So eventually the Taliban somehow agreed to make a dialogue, and now they are preparing to really kind of exchange delegations. This is the initial talking. It's still that has not taken place, but they have been introduced that they will sit together. But probably once the mechanism is worked out, then they will send a high delegation to see about the issue to talk about.
When you say high delegation, Mr. Massoud, would you be more specific? How high is it likely to be, Mr. Massoud himself?
No, it's not known who will be, but they said the first contact will pave the way for a higher delegation. So this is the first contact. As soon as they work out a mechanism, then there will be a high delegation introduced.
What kind of mechanism do your side expect it should be? What are some of the most important elements, Mr. Massoud?
Well, of course, our proposal is the same as the proposal of the people of Afghanistan. What we are saying, the first thing is that for the Taliban to curb the violence, to curb the breaking house of the people, to stop the selective killing of the politicians and commandos, to stop intimidating the people across Afghanistan. And then, of course, let's talk about the human rights, basic rights, about the election, about the freedom of press, freedom of media, about the very essential and basic rights of the human being. Let's talk about that one, because something that every citizen of Afghanistan needs to uphold that one. So therefore, we are not demanding something high, but what we are doing, we are proposing something that these values have to be respected first. These values is something that is universal values. That's what we propose to the Taliban.
At this point, we have been hearing from Ahmad Massoud talking about inclusive government. Very much correlates with the adjective that the spokesperson of the Taliban that I interviewed a few days earlier gave to me. It seems that both sides are using the same adjectives.
Yes, but maybe definition might differ.
How is your definition?
Government. Well, inclusive government in our definition is that all ethnicities must be involved. There are 4 major ethnicities in Afghanistan: Pashtun, Tajik, Hazar, Uzbek, and the rest might be a smaller one. But these four ones, the Taliban is one of them. So therefore, if we can have a power sharing based on the ethnicities, and the structure of the power should be as such that all ethnicities can see themselves in the process of decision making.
We understand now, according to the spokesperson of Taliban and reported by the media as well, some of the former Afghan government officials, for example, former President Karzai, Dr. Abdullah, were among the people being consulted by the Taliban's delegation about forming a future quote-unquote government. Now, how close are you from Mr. Massoud and yourself been working with these names?
Dr. Abdullah and Mr. Karzai, they are politicians. They have been there for 20 years. They have been part of the government, but they do not represent the ethnicities of Afghanistan. They do not represent us. So therefore, it's their thing. Of course, they can represent themselves, but not our side.
So you don't think the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is going to be the case that you are referring to? That's not the government that you want, which is the government advocated by the Taliban side right now.
Not really, because I mean, they have come by force, and so therefore their emirate is not today's work. That's not what people of Afghanistan needs.
Okay.
Because emirates belong to very, very old time. So today, Afghanistan needs something. After 20 years of some sort of democracy, we really want to make progress, not to go backward.
Mr. Massoud, according to Ahmad Massoud, if the negotiation doesn't work out, he, together with the fighters in the Panjshir Valley, would resort to fight. What does that mean? If the negotiation doesn't go well, if it happens, then they will fire first toward the Taliban? What does that mean exactly?
No, I think that we would not fire. We would really prefer negotiation. But if the Taliban attack, of course, we don't have no choice except to resist the fighting of the Taliban. Resistance means that not to fight, but to resist the fight, to stand against the fight. So therefore, at this moment, if that happens, then it means the resistance will not be only limited to Panjshir. Already it is in Parwan, Kapisa, Baghlan, and some central part of Afghanistan. So if they attack that one, then it means that the resistance will expand across the country, and there is no doubt. Resistance comes from the people. At this moment, the geography of the resistance have expanded in different other fields, like political fields, like cultural fields. So women of Afghanistan are the big force of the resistance because their values are different from the Taliban. The civil society, a big force of the resistance. The younger generation of Afghanistan, which makes up 70% of the population, they are force of the resistance because all their values differs from the Taliban. So therefore, the resistance will not be limited only to Panjshir. It will go across Afghanistan.
I see, Mr. Massoud. So you are saying that your side has the power to motivate all of these social groups that you refer to if the negotiation didn't work out. Is that what you're trying to say? That you have the power?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Got it.
That will happen.
All right. Let's talk about the fighters. There are mixed reports in the media. Some talk about a few hundred, together with Mr. Massoud and Mr. Saleh in the Panjshir Valley. Others talk about several thousands. There are also reports talking about the Taliban forces gathering at the so-called entrance of the Panjshir Valley. So what exactly is the situation now, Mr. Massoud?
Well, this is a military secret. So of course, no one can disclose their own number. So therefore, it must remain like that.
There are reports that Mr. Massoud talk about the ammunition and weapons that his resistant front has been gathering over the years to prepare, quote, for this moment. Whether you think that is capable enough in terms of arms and ammunition against the Taliban?
Well, let's see. Again, there's something that we cannot disclose.
I see.
And we have to keep it like that.
Mr. Massoud, though, I know you are in Europe, for example, to persuade the governments and the public to support you and to donate to you. So what kind of support are you looking for?
Well, what we are seeking for, we seek for the international support for a good cause of Afghanistan. We are warning the international community that they have to really help to see that Afghanistan will eventually be able to really make an inclusive government in there. We are saying that the international community for 20 years, they were there, but out of a sudden they came out of Afghanistan. Now the country is in a very dire situation. We are saying that, well, we really have to support a just cause in Afghanistan, be it from other side, from any side. We are saying that, well, this is the plight of the Afghan people. We do not want to go back 20 years back from Taliban to Taliban. We really have to make progress ahead. And we are really seeking that not to recognize the government unless there is a legitimate government, unless a government which has come by the consent of the people, not by force, unless there is a government which could represent all ethnicities in Afghanistan, a government which could really uphold the human right, the man right, the woman right, all the rights, all the very essential rights. That's what we are really looking for the international community to see.
What are the responses you are getting so far?
Well, so far they have been kind of, still they are in a shock. They know every day they are getting reports from inside Afghanistan. At this moment they are in shock. They don't know what to do, where to turn. But they are kind of waiting. Slowly they are coming into turn. At the moment their priority is to get their citizens out of Afghanistan. That's their priority. But we hope as soon as their priority is met, then they will have to really look very deep into Afghanistan. What sort of system will be there? Because if they ignore Afghanistan, the problem in Afghanistan will not be only limited in the boundary of Afghanistan. It will affect everybody, especially the neighboring countries, extra-regional, and the whole world it will expand. For example, if we let the whole thing to go the same way as it goes, maybe so many terrorist groups will be there. The terrorist hub will be in Afghanistan. Then they can inflict a heavy casualties in the whole region and the whole world. That's what we are looking for, the international community, to take care of these things before it's too late.
I see.
Because when my brother was alive 20 years back, he warned before, when Taliban was created, he warned the international community. He came to Europe, he came to France, he went to Strasbourg. He warned the international community of upcoming terrorist activity which will affect the whole world. But those warnings were not really listened. They were not carefully studied. Then what happened? Today we are having a lot of problems in the whole world like that. If only those warnings were taken serious by today, we would not have been in this situation. We hope that this time, when we warn this situation, they have to take it seriously before it's too late, and it will affect the whole world. So therefore, if they do listen, that's good for the benefit of their country, of their people. If they don't listen, of course, they will have the same fate as us.
But Ambassador Massoud, I'm sure you are aware the G7 virtual meeting did not work very well. It seems that there are disagreements between the American and also their European counterparts about many things, including what to deal with Afghanistan next after August the 31st. Your take on that?
Unfortunately, we are in the middle of a maybe bigger game. We don't know. At this moment, the people of Afghanistan are so distrustful. So it's in a kind of very appalling situation because the West as a whole came to Afghanistan 20 years ago. And they said that they will come to root out terrorism and they will help the people of Afghanistan to build their lives. But after 20 years, they left Afghanistan in a very irresponsible fashion. And they put the whole country in a very kind of chaotic situation. So therefore, it's really, we don't know what is their next move. But let me say that at the moment, people of Afghanistan, what they expected from the West, that at least they should not leave them alone. They should kind of ensure their basic things is need to survive. Unfortunately, that things did not meet. And they're very frustrated. So therefore, what really kind of, we don't know what to expect from the Western countries, especially from the American. Not to forget that the first move was that the American signed an agreement with the Taliban a year ago on representation of Dr. Khalizad for an American envoy for peace. But since his signature, the whole country fell apart. So we don't know what exactly is the mystery, why, if the peace was signed, People of Afghanistan should have really kind of seen peace, but instead they saw war and catastrophe and tragic. So what happened? Where went wrong? And what is the content of the peace agreement between the American and the Taliban that the whole situation turned very bleak to the Afghan people? They're all questions that we are kind of so concerned about it.
So you mean, Mr. Ambassador, you do not know the content of that agreement?
No, because that was a secret agreement between Dr. Khalilzad representing America and the Taliban, Mullah brother, and all of that.
Right. I remember your brother, your older brother, Ahmad Shah Massoud, said during his time that he is fighting not only for Afghans but also for the West when he was fighting the battles. Ahmed Masoud, his son, during his editorial letter to Washington Post, also quote that he's not just fighting for the Afghans but also for the West. But according to what you have just said, there seems to be quite some disillusion that the Afghans feel about the West. How can I see the reconcile of these two sides?
Well, when we say that, when they say that you're not only fighting for Afghans but also for the West, they meant that, well, for those values that they were upholding in the West, like democracy, human rights, men's rights, all of that values. So they wanted to say that, well, we are safeguarding these sorts of values. So we are fighting to safeguard that sort of, so they are kind of universal values. So today when we say that why the West did such thing, because those values are universal. Why did we withdraw from those values altogether to leave the whole thing to the Taliban? Why they somewhat transferred the whole power to the Taliban? It was not kind of a defeat. It was not a defeat at all. That was kind of transferring the power to the Taliban, and in a very sort of fashion that was very ambiguous.
I see.
So therefore, why to submit the whole values like that, very values to the Taliban? They're all the questions.
The Taliban has made a lot of promises in public through their spokesperson, through their political leaders. Now, do you believe them? To what extent, when you see reality, you would say you believe? Until what time, Mr. Massoud?
Well, the way we know them from the past, we don't believe them. But let's see, when they promise whether they will do it or not. Let's say, for example, they promised that they will not enter people's houses. They did. They promised that they will not do selective killing. They did. They promised that they will help the Afghan women. But yesterday they said to all Afghan women to sit at home, don't come out there. They promised many things, but unfortunately it's not. But I'm not saying that, well, we have to put everything aside. We are saying that, well, let's wait for a few more days. What sort of government they are going to propose, and whether they will stick with their promise, whether they will stop the violence, whether they, most importantly, whether they will stop their attack on Panjshir and some other places, which is under control of the resistance forces. So they're all the things we have to see.
Your family is a legendary family in the history of Afghanistan, coming from, so first of all, your elder brother, and now his son, and you as well, Mr. Ambassador, as a diplomat. I really wonder, how is your family digesting the decades of experiences you've been having in Afghanistan with different factions?
Well, of course, we have been an up and down of Afghanistan history for the past 4 or 5 decades. So therefore, it's difficult. But really what gave us energy to go on, just to see what we can do for the people, for the country, for the freedom of the country. It's difficult. We have lost a lot of people in our family. Not only Massoud, my little brother, but many others we have lost in this struggle that we are continuing to do so. It is still we are continuing to do so. It's very difficult, but as I said, that what really kind of derive us to do so, because we are doing for the good cause of the country. That is really the main thing that we are doing. It's nothing to do with the position, because none of us, we were seeking. Massoud, my elder brother, he did not seek for the position. I did not seek for the position for the past 20 years. I never asked for something, although so many posts were proposed to me. First vice president, the foreign minister, and any other minister. I did not accept that one. And of course, his son do not accept either like that. So we are really kind of working for a good cause of the country, and that is our way to go on. And this chain will continue to be the case.
Ambassador Massoud, there are a lot of talk about the young Massoud, Ahmad Massoud, about his experiences in education. He was educated in middle school in the UK, then go to universities as well in the UK. And people say whether he's experienced in leading a resistant front and also even go to military actions against the very strong Taliban. A lot of people have questions, Ambassador Massoud.
Well, let me say those who are very experienced, they left Afghanistan, they could not fight. It's the question of will, of the resistance, of the motivation, of the good cause, of the people, of the constituency, and the backing of the people. They all counts. We have got many experienced fighters inside Afghanistan, but we need leadership to lead these things. So yes, of course, he may not have much of this experience military, but he is a very clever, smart, and he has got, he's very charismatic, has got the support of the people, has got the constituency, and the trust and confidence, all of that he has got. So hopefully we can do it.
All right. Ambassador Massoud, how would you describe your relationship with the young Ahmad Massoud?
Well, it's very close. We are not only a friend that he is my nephew, we're a friend, and he is my son-in-law as well. So we are very close, we're one family.
Probably, Ambassador Massoud, you have been hearing that the Chinese side has been proposing, together with others, an open and inclusive government in Afghanistan. How would you respond to that call?
Well, we do need a kind of open, inclusive government. That's what we need, really. We need. And we hope that China can play a very important role in that in Afghanistan, because China is our major neighbor, and we have got border. That's our neighbor. And the threats, if it comes from Afghanistan, then that will affect everybody, including China as well. So before the threat spreads from there, we better to really curb it. And therefore, to push for an inclusive government which could represent all ethnicities in Afghanistan, especially those ethnicities who are bordering China, that is our ethnicities. So if China really kind of pushes for that sort of inclusive government, then of course in the future that can be safe and sound. So that's very, very important.
China also has been calling on for a peaceful transition. Now, once again, your response.
Yes, peaceful transition. I hope so. And I hope that the Taliban will accept it. I hope the international community will really put pressure that they should accept such thing like that. I hope that the Taliban came to that conclusion that they came by force, but now this is the time to really get a government which will be accepted by all sides. I mean, this is the peaceful transition.
One of the things the Taliban promised, repeated again, in their press conferences and interviews of the spokesperson, is not having Afghanistan be the place that would harbor forces eventually would harm neighboring countries. That, of course, is also promised to China. Now, Ambassador Massoud, how much do you think that will be implemented? What does it take to implement that? And whether you are supporting the fact that Afghanistan should not be used as a place for those forces to attack neighboring countries and others?
Well, I doubt it. As far as I know, the Taliban is mixed of different forces. It's not Afghani only, it's different forces from across the world as well. You know that some terrorist groups have had connection for a long, long time with the Taliban. And without those groups in Afghanistan, the Taliban would not have come so fast to capture the whole country. So therefore, those groups, they are kind of very integral part of the Taliban. They cannot get them out. They cannot say that, no, you are not in, because we got the victory, we are not in. They can't do that one. So now we all have to try to see how exactly we can do first fix inside Afghanistan. This is very important. Not that they just got promised that they will do something or they will not allow something. Probably they may not have even the force and the will and the resources not to allow them. So it's difficult to really kind of just believe that, well, they will not allow sessions to happen. No, we better to really make sure that from the beginning there is an inclusive government which could represent only Afghanistan and the people of Afghanistan, not any foreign groups or terrorist groups which will be there under the disguise of this Taliban.
My final question for you, Ambassador Massoud, is what do you think could be the best scenario and the worst scenario for Afghanistan?
Well, I mean, let's see, because I do believe that maybe days or most probably weeks, the things will reveal which direction Afghanistan is going to go. And it's not very difficult to understand that, but especially for the Afghans, it's not very, very difficult. So we know which direction is going to go. Probably these days, Taliban may really try to put up a good image of themselves and promising is the whole thing like that. But when it comes to it, then we will know this one. But I think that let's give it some days, probably a week or two, then we will know which way Afghanistan is going to go. The best scenario is that eventually Taliban come to the senses that military victory does not win them the hearts and minds of the people. It's better to sit with their ethnicities to really work for Afghanistan. That's a good scenario. But the bad scenario is that they think that, well, we have already achieved the military victory. We can go on like 20 years back, and then we can achieve more. And that's the bad scenario because now 20 years gone. Afghanistan have changed. They will never be able to do it. So therefore, the bad scenario will affect everybody.